The New Mexico Territory in 1882 was a place where legends were born from the dust and desperation of frontier life. Thomas Garrett, a struggling rancher barely making ends meet on a patch of arid land, had learned to expect little from life beyond hard work and solitude. At 38 years old, he had never married, never accumulated wealth, and had resigned himself to a simple existence tending his small herd of cattle and maintaining his modest homestead. He was a tall, lean man weathered by sun and wind, with calloused hands and a quiet demeanor that spoke of someone who had made peace with loneliness. It was during a scorching afternoon in late July when Thomas encountered something that would change his life forever. He had been riding along a dry creek bed, searching for strays, when he heard sounds of distress echoing off the canyon walls. Following the noise, he discovered two Apache women trapped in a box canyon, surrounded by a group of 5 rough-looking men who were clearly not offering assistance. The women were remarkable not just for their beauty, but for their extraordinary size. Both stood well over 6 feet tall, with powerful muscular builds that spoke of strength and resilience. They were twins, identical in every way, with long black hair, fierce dark eyes, and expressions of defiant courage even in the face of danger. The men surrounding them were drifters, the kind of lawless wanderers who preyed on the vulnerable in territories where law enforcement was sparse and justice often came from the barrel of a gun. Thomas recognized 2 of them from wanted posters he'd seen in town. His heart pounded as he assessed the situation. He was one man against 5, armed only with his rifle and revolver, facing men who clearly had violence on their minds. But Thomas Garrett, for all his poverty and obscurity, had never been a coward. More importantly, he had never been able to turn away from injustice, even when prudence suggested he should. Without announcing himself, he positioned his horse on the high ground, levered a round into his Winchester, and fired a warning shot that echoed like thunder through the canyon. "That's far enough, gentlemen," Thomas called out, his voice steady despite the adrenaline coursing through his veins. "Those women are under my protection now. I suggest you ride on before this gets uglier than it needs to be." The 5 men turned, assessing this unexpected interference. The leader, a scarred man with a cruel mouth, laughed. "That's so. You planning to take on all 5 of us, sodbuster?" "If necessary," Thomas replied, his rifle trained on the leader's chest. "But I'm hoping you're smart enough to recognize a losing proposition when you see one. I've got the high ground, clear sight lines, and a Winchester that doesn't miss. First shot is yours," he nodded at the leader, "and my guess is your friends will scatter before they risk joining you in hell. Question is, are you willing to die today over something that isn't your concern?" There was a long, tense moment where the outcome could have gone either way. But Thomas had read the situation correctly. Men like these were bullies and opportunists, not soldiers willing to die for a cause. The leader's eyes narrowed, calculating odds he didn't like. Finally, he spat in the dust and gestured to his companions. "This ain't over, sodbuster. We'll remember you." "I'll sleep better knowing that," Thomas replied evenly, his rifle never wavering until all 5 men had mounted their horses and ridden out of the canyon. Only when they were gone did Thomas lower his weapon and turn his attention to the 2 Apache women. Up close, they were even more impressive. Both stood at least 6 feet 3 inches tall, with broad shoulders and muscular frames that suggested incredible physical power. Their faces were beautiful, with high cheekbones and intelligent eyes that now regarded him with a mixture of gratitude and caution. Thomas raised his hands to show he meant no harm. "Do you speak English?" he asked. The woman on the left nodded. "Yes. I am Naira. This is my sister, Kaya. We speak your language. You saved us. Why?" Thomas blinked at the directness of the question. "Because it was the right thing to do. Those men meant you harm. I couldn't ride away from that." "Many would have," Kaya said, speaking for the first time. Her voice was deeper than her sister's, resonant and strong. "Many have." Thomas studied them, noting their travel-worn appearance, the dust on their clothing, the way they carried themselves despite obvious exhaustion. "You've been running," he observed. "Are you hungry? My ranch isn't far. I can offer you food, water, and a safe place to rest." The sisters exchanged a long look, communicating in that wordless way twins often do. Finally, Naira nodded. We accept your offer, Thomas Garrett. Thomas started at hearing his name. How did you? Your name is written inside your hat band, Naira said with a hint of a smile. We are observant. The journey to Thomas's ranch took less than an hour. During the ride, he learned that the sisters were the last survivors of their family, fleeing from a reservation where conditions had become unbearable. Their unusual size had marked them as oddities even among their own people, though it had also made them formidable and respected. They were heading toward the Colorado Territory, hoping to find a community of other displaced Apache who had established a settlement there. Thomas's ranch, when they arrived, was modest to the point of poverty. The house was small but well-maintained, the barn showed signs of frequent repair, and the few cattle visible were healthy if not numerous. It was the property of a man who worked hard with little to show for it. It's not much, Thomas said, suddenly self-conscious about bringing these remarkable women to such humble surroundings. It is honest work and honest living, Naira replied, her tone carrying approval rather than judgment. That is more than many can claim. Thomas set them up in his small spare room, gave them access to his well for washing, and prepared the best meal he could manage with his limited supplies. The sisters ate with controlled hunger, their manners impeccable despite their obvious need. As evening fell, Thomas insisted they rest while he bedded down in the barn, unwilling to make them uncomfortable by sleeping in the main house. You would give us your home? Kaya asked, surprised. It's just for sleeping, Thomas replied with a shrug. The barn is comfortable enough, and you've had a harder day than I have. That night, Thomas lay in the hayloft, staring up at the stars through gaps in the barn roof. He thought about the sisters, about their strength and dignity, about the casual cruelty of the world that had forced them to flee their home. He thought about his own lonely existence and wondered what it must be like to have a connection as deep as twins shared. Sleep came slowly, and when it did, it was restless. He woke suddenly to the sound of the barn door opening. Sitting up quickly, his hand instinctively reaching for the rifle he kept nearby, Thomas saw the silhouettes of two tall figures entering the barn. His heart raced until he recognized the sisters in the moonlight streaming through the door. Naira! Kaya! Is something wrong? He asked, concerned. The twins approached the ladder to the loft, their faces serious. We need to speak with you, Naira said. May we come up? Of course, Thomas replied, confused and suddenly very aware that he was shirtless, having removed his shirt in the summer heat. The sisters climbed the ladder with athletic grace and sat facing him in the hay. In the silvery moonlight, they looked almost ethereal, their powerful frames somehow elegant in the play of light and shadow. Thomas Garrett, Naira began, her voice formal, you saved our lives today. You offered us sanctuary in your home. You have treated us with respect and kindness when the world has shown us little of either. We have discussed this, my sister and I, and we have come to a decision. Thomas's mouth went dry. He had no idea what was coming, but the intensity in their eyes made his pulse quicken. Kaya continued where her sister left off. In our culture, a life debt is a sacred thing. But this is more than debt. You are alone, as we are alone. You work hard but have little. You are a good man in a world that does not reward goodness. We wish to propose something unusual. We want to stay, Naira said bluntly. Not as guests, not temporarily. We want to stay here with you, and help you build this ranch into something more. 3 people working together can achieve what one person cannot. Thomas's mind reeled. Stay. But you are going to Colorado, to find your people. We have found something better, Kaya interrupted. We have found a man of honor who sees us as people, not as curiosities or threats. We have found a home that could be ours if you will allow it. Of course you can stay, Thomas said immediately. You're welcome here as long as you want. I would be grateful for the help, and the company. I can pay you from the ranch profits, once we... No, Naira said firmly. You misunderstand. We do not wish to be hired hands. We wish to be family. We wish to be yours, and for you to be ours. Together. The implications of her words hung in the air like smoke. Thomas stared at them, his mind struggling to process what they were suggesting. Together. You mean? We are twins, Kaya explained softly. We share everything. We always have. We are one soul in two bodies. If we are to stay, if we are to build a life here, it must be as equals, as partners. In our culture, such arrangements are not unheard of when circumstances are unusual. And we are all unusual, are we not? Thomas felt as if the world had tilted on its axis. These two magnificent women were proposing something that defied every convention he had ever known. It was scandalous, unorthodox, probably illegal by the standards of territorial law. It would make them pariahs if anyone found out. And yet, as he looked at their faces, at the hope and determination mixed with vulnerability in their eyes, he felt something shift in his chest. "Why me?" he whispered. "You barely know me. You could go anywhere, find." "We know enough," Naira said. "We know you risked your life for strangers. We know you gave us your bed while you slept in your barn. We know you look at us and see people, not monsters or oddities. That is rare, Thomas Garrett. That is precious. And we feel." She glanced at her sister. "We feel drawn to you in a way we cannot fully explain." "As you are drawn to us," Kaya added, her eyes holding his. "Do not deny it. We see how you look at us when you think we do not notice. Not with the hungry eyes of those men in the canyon, but with wonder, and yes, with desire. There is no shame in it." Thomas's face burned. It was true. From the moment he had seen them, he had been captivated by their strength, their beauty, their presence. But he had pushed those feelings down, assuming they were impossible, inappropriate. "This is madness," he said, but his voice lacked conviction. "Perhaps," Naira agreed. "But is it not a beautiful madness? Is it not better than loneliness? Than living half a life? What would people say? How would we?" "We tell no one," Kaya said simply. "To the world, we are your hired hands, or your cousins, or whatever story we create. But here in our home we are family. We are partners. We are more." Thomas looked from one sister to the other, seeing in their faces a reflection of his own loneliness, his own hunger for connection and belonging. He thought about his empty life, about nights spent staring at the ceiling of his modest home, wondering if this was all there would ever be. He thought about the courage it must have taken for these women to make this proposal, to lay themselves bare before him like this. "If we do this," he said slowly, "it has to be based on honesty and respect. You would be equal partners in everything. The ranch, the decisions, all of it. And if at any time either of you wants to leave, you can, no questions asked. I won't trap you here." The sisters smiled, and in that moment, Thomas saw their tension release. "We would expect nothing less," Naira said. "Then yes," Thomas heard himself say, wondering if he was making the biggest mistake of his life or the best decision he would ever make. "Yes, stay. Build this life with me. Together." What happened next was tender and profound, a union of three lonely souls finding in each other something they had never expected to discover. The sisters moved with gentle confidence, their touches both strong and soft, their whispers filled with reassurance and growing passion. Thomas, overwhelmed by the reality of this impossible gift, could only surrender to the moment, to the connection that flowed between them like a current finding its course. In the years that followed, the Garrett Ranch transformed from a struggling operation into one of the most productive in the territory. 3 people working in harmony, each contributing their unique strengths, accomplished what had seemed impossible for one man alone. The sisters proved to be extraordinary workers, their size and strength allowing them to handle tasks that would have required multiple hired hands. Thomas's knowledge of ranching combined with their determination and intelligence created a perfect synergy. To the outside world, they maintained the fiction that Naira and Kaya were Thomas's cousins, come to help him after the death of their parents. Most neighbors accepted the story without question, though some undoubtedly suspected the truth. But the Garretts kept to themselves, worked hard, and caused no trouble, so even suspicious tongues eventually stilled. Within the walls of their home, they built something rare and precious, a family based on mutual choice, respect, and love. The sisters remained as close as ever, their twin bond undiminished, but now Thomas was part of that circle, completing something that had been incomplete in all 3 of them. Children came eventually, strong and healthy, and if some neighbors whispered about which sister was mother to which child, the Garretts ignored them. In their home, all children were loved equally. All bonds were honored equally. Thomas Garrett, the poor rancher who had expected nothing from life but hard work and solitude, found instead a richness beyond measure. On his deathbed, surrounded by Naira, Kaya, and their grown children and grandchildren, his last words were simple. "I saved 2 lives in a canyon. You saved mine every day after. Thank you for choosing me." The sisters, gray-haired now but still strong and tall, held his hands as he passed, their tears falling on the weathered skin of the man who had seen them not as oddities or objects, but as the magnificent souls they were. And in the end, that had made all the difference.